Everyday life. It appears for the mind to have some sort of meaning, some sort of process, some sort of order, and some sort of boundaries. And it's the boundaries that I'd like to talk about today. The body. We're not looking at everyday life as anything abnormal that the body normally undertakes. The body has its boundaries, its capabilities. It can only do so many things. Within its limitations. Everyday life, you see, looking at it not as the body, but as this psychological programmed mind, the thinking vessel. Right now it appears as if this mind is thinking what it's going to be saying next. But of course there are stages of that, and there are stages when things just come out. Yeah, and we all know that sometimes the things that just come out create problems, mistakes and everything, because the mind, that logical mind, says that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is think about what you're going to say, make sure it is in a particular language, order, and unoffensive or offensive, whatever the subject is and whatever the criteria that the mind wants to meet. So these are boundaries. Whatever we create, be it a thought, or be it an object or a subject, it has instant boundaries. You make a painting and you put a frame around it to say this is the painting. It's separate from the wall that surrounds it, and I want it to be seen as this and only this. The contents of the painting can be analysed, measured, valued, narrated by the viewer in any way it likes. The painting also has a title, which forces more boundaries. See, this is the title. So therefore, if you look at it without the title, before the title, you'll make up something that is from your own intellect. But you give it a title, it kind of points in a particular direction to what the artist wants to tell you, or the artist does not want to tell you, you see. So everything that is created creates more boundaries. So when you look at life in a whole, no thinking mind, no evaluator, no measurer, no judger, no analyst, and there are no boundaries. You look outside at the landscape, you don't see the boundaries until you divide the field as separate from the tree separate from the sky. The tree, the word, gives it boundaries. The form that it appears to have gives it boundaries. The painter looks at it two-dimensionally. It has to look at it in a particular way to make it three-dimensional. It has to understand the sunlight, the wind, the tones, to create something three-dimensional. The minute you give it three-dimensionality, it has boundaries, because it can no longer be seen two-dimensional. Do you understand this? The more we create, the more boundaries we implement. Not just in painting, in our thoughts, in our language, in our words, in our experiences that are projected through a narrated story, or a narrated statement. This is how it was for me. So the boundaries of my experience, that maybe was a boundless experience, has been given more attention to it being a lesser than what the experience was, through the ownership of me, my mind, the names I give it, the way it's described. That's why it's a reverse way of looking that Satori, enlightenment, takes place. I want to find God. I want to be free. Freedom is boundless, you see. Freedom is boundless. God, when it's given the information to bind it into God as a man, Jesus was a man, father of Jesus had to be a man. It's bound by the name man, the name God, the name Son, Father. So how can a mind that has created so many boundaries within itself understand freedom? The mind itself has to become freedom. Therefore, it has to remove all boundaries to understand the diverse, infinite, limitless self that has no boundaries, you see. There's a fear there. I don't like limitless, infinite. I want to know who I am, where I am, as if I'm here as this body. I don't want to lose this body. I don't want this body to collapse and experience this non-duality boundlessness. I'd like to experience non-duality boundlessness, but within the body and the mind that knows it. You see, what you understand through this freedom, let's call enlightenment freedom, through this freedom, through this Satori, is, I don't understand. What can I understand by using names that bind the freedom? See, it would have been absolutely lovely to have been there, for some sort of me to have been there during the moment of dissolution, to face the new birth. So you say, what was enlightenment like? Anything that says enlightenment exists or is like something or appeared through this type of experience is using bound ways to describe the boundless. So let's go back to everyday life. Let's forget about this enlightenment. The radio comes on in the car. You are in a boundless situation. Your mind was nowhere. You were just sailing along, and the straight road, that road where you don't have to change gear and doesn't, it just goes on, and your mind is nowhere. It's not even thinking about where you're going. It's boundless. And then the radio comes on and it speaks about the American election. And it goes straight into drive of what I like, what I don't like, what they say, what they don't say, what they're here for, what they're representing and what they're not representing. Whole lot of boundaries into your interpretation, your bound interpretation to that what is taking place in the radio. So you're now accepting, and everyone, even that enlightened figure, has to, even though it's newborn, has to return to understand the boundaries again, you see. But the actuality is you don't understand what boundaries are, because when you've tasted the boundless, the boundaries are just fragments of your imagination. They're just thoughts that appear and disappear like puffs of smoke. Sometimes they appear as fireworks, like a big bang. Whew, whew. Thank God that one didn't last. But of course, even in the subtlety of the bound thoughts, it's important, because you cannot fit into a world that is determined by boundaries and is needful of boundaries and wants to be bound. So everyday life does not involve looking for the boundless within I. It's always erring for the side of I wants freedom. But I that wants freedom, this I that wants freedom, doesn't want to be freedom forever and ever. Amen. It likes the security, the safety of this bound body, which is a thought, which is a word. Yes, we can touch our body, but we can't touch it without the space around it, you see. I often used to use the term, imagine if there was no space. So everything would be fixed. The tree would be fixed to you. Yeah? You wouldn't be able to see, because everything would be fixed. There's no space. Of course, it wouldn't be a tree in you. It would just be a massive form. Whether it's living or non-living, it matters not. Whereas the joy, you see? So the joy is not in me. It's not in this body. The joy is in the freedom of the body being able to move freely. But the mind, it doesn't like being free, you see? So when you say, I want to be free, the body is sitting up and saying, yes, let's go for a walk. But anyway, I'm already free. I can move. I have the freedom to swing my arms around my head, to wiggle my fingers. So it's not the body that wants to be free. It's the mind that wants to be free. But it doesn't want to be free eternally. You see, that's my poem for the day. Therefore, it will never know its capabilities. It will always be limited. It will always only look at life in an everyday way. and listen to the radio and have opinions on elections and the process, Auntie Sachin, Auntie Edna has died. We have to go to the funeral. Who is it that's going to the funeral? Who is it that died? What is death? You see? Death is just an outward breath. But it's narrated into some sort of deep and meaningful dark, somber. We're dying every day, you see, every moment. Every outward breath is death. You want to experience death? Breathe outwards. Yeah? What's wrong with the breath? You see, boundlessness is to discover that what is in the core of the outward breath, not what the breath is, not what it does, not what it leads to, not what it comes from. What is in the core of the outward breath, you see? You see, it's a type of koan when you say that, because it makes you stop. Some may experiment with the breath, but some minds will say, what? What is in the core of the outward breath? Oh, what does it mean, you see? The head goes into overdrive, the heart goes into overdrive, the breath goes into overdrive. This is not a teaching. If you want to be, free from mind, or you want to have a free mind, experience that what is free from mind. That what is free from mind has also to be free from body. Mind and body become one in enlightenment. See? Already one, Already one. But the mind is never thinking about the body when you're two, when you're already one. The mind is not saying, I want to do this, when the body wants to sit and, wants to lie in bed and sleep, and the mind wants to say, no, I want to climb Mount Everest. Where is the oneness there, you see? Where is the Buddha balanced mind there? Something is boundless, beyond I, beyond mind, beyond body. You see, all these great speakers of science and whatever, they talk about consciousness, and they want to discover consciousness, and some just want to forget about consciousness and discover the planets and where we come from and all that stuff. But there is only consciousness, and consciousness is boundless. So what can describe it? What can explain it without a bound mind, without bound words? The experience of consciousness experiencing itself, which is what is taking place, bound in some sort of book, some sort of story, is happening every single nanosecond of your time world. So it's pointless, you see. So the intellectual, they don't want to discover consciousness. They do, for the glory. The Wikipedia mentions, I'm a successful guy, I did this, I'm a scientist, I'm a physicist, I'm a whatever these names are for science, or whether it's religion. I found consciousness. I can write a book about it. You see, the enlightened mind will say, if you can write about anything, if you can speak about anything that is absolutely using a mind, or anything that has been created by mind, then it's not true. It's not consciousness. Consciousness stops within itself. Consciousness is that what holds the outward breath as an outward breath. And when you look at that, everything holds itself together, but it's consciousness that's holding it all together. That's a poem within the words of the poetry. Everyday life, fine. Use the mind. Go through the process and try and engage with that what is unengageable. But the minute the mind disperses, the minute the thoughts go calm, the minute the body stops associating with the action, the experience, the minute the world operates on its own with no operator, meaning you, there's a moment. And in this moment, infinite, limitless, boundless you. But when you say you, it's not you the body, it's not you the mind, it's the consciousness that you are. And you won't be able to say a word about it.